We have the joy today of bringing co-founder of Google, Sergey Brin, into the studio. Welcome, Sergey.
Thank you, Ellie.
Sergey, let's talk about the era before Google,
Sure.
the boy who introduced us to a new way of engaging with the internet.
Yeah. Well, it started out as a Jewish Russian born in Soviet Russia, and it was really my parents who I must have to accredit, Eugene and Michael, to giving me my education and really starting out everything that I came to today.
And how did they foster that education, your parents?
Well, my parents were both very highly educated. My dad was a professor of mathematics, and my mom a researcher for NASA. So the learning never ended out. It was continuous, and they really pushed me at home and both at school to be the best I could.
Great, great. Well, I saw something interesting. Is it true that you attended a Montessori school as a young child?
Yeah, what a lot of people don't know is that both Larry and I attended Montessori schools
Oh, wow.
for elementary. And I think that really did, as well as my parents, help foster just the creativity that you'll see in Google today, and the ability at a young age to just pursue the interests I had at the time.
Okay. And then I see that, obviously then later that all kind of led into Stanford, which is really where it all began, correct?
Stanford was the breeding ground of today's Google. Stanford's where I met Larry Page. I was 21, he was 22 at the time. He had just finished up his undergraduate at the University of Michigan, and Stanford was where we really began to start collaborating together. Early on, we really butted heads, but inevitably that's what led us to work together so great. We were never shy of correcting each other or really testing out one's theories.
Wonderful. So then what was the origin of Google? What made it all start and everything?
Yeah, it started like many of my other projects. Google really wasn't supposed to be anything too special when it first began. Right around the same time, I was working on an advanced algorithm that was supposed to allow people to find movies that they might be interested in. So it was called Movie Matcher, and it was just an algorithm. You would rate a movie that you liked, and then that would be combined with all of the other data we gathered on other users, and it was supposed to help match people with similar interests to movies that they liked and hadn't seen yet. So Google really started with a simple idea and a very basic core, like all my other ideas, but when it came up, when we got it online and it started running, we realized that we might actually have had something that was really bound to take off.
And at that stage, did you realize quite what the potential was going to be for Google? Did you ever foresee it becoming what it is today?
Larry and I had big visions, and it was a bit of a slow start, but once we got the kinks worked out, Google started to explode. And in its early stages, it was known as Backrub, which was just supposed to be a advanced search engine optimizer to really find web pages that were interconnected. Google was founded on the notion that, controversially, not all pages are created equal. So some happen to be better than others.
True.
And that was really how it started. We didn't really know what we had until, like I said, it went online and things just really started to take off.
Great. Well, with any project, and I'm sure you've seen this with your other projects as well, were there risks involved? What were those risks? How did those play into how you went about creating Google and things like that?
Sure. We were ambitious, that's for sure. When our searches started taking off, we had actually at one point in time crashed the Stanford servers. There were so many students were using our site, and the bandwidth was really growing. Right around that point in time, we were just two college students, and Larry and I had to bring together our money, which together, forgive me for not remembering, it was between $10,000 to $20,000.
Wow.
We met up with a man who was selling hard drives because we needed a greater capacity to store some of this data, and bought nearly $20,000 worth of hard drives at the time, and that was everything we had. So there was one point where it was make or break for not only us and our college dreams of going farther, but Google itself. We put everything on the line. similar to Elon Musk with Tesla. There were a couple of extra zeros that Elon
Sure,
put there. But
Great. And we're back. As Google has grown, it's now the largest search engine in the world. Google's very basic motto, "Don't be evil," has been tested. How would you say that ethical issues are handled at Google, just going off of that motto of "Don't be evil"?
yeah, we've kept that at our core since starting out over the past 20 years. We knew we didn't want to be like Big Blue and a lot of the other tech giants. As you know, some companies keep many pages and documents on ethical standards for their company, but we believe that we use our best judgment and our simple model, and we stick to that.
Okay. Who's responsible for handling ethics and making sure that Google is ethical?
Sure. Well, at the top we've got our trifecta. We've got Eric Schmidt, who sees the day-to-day operations and makes sure the books look good. Larry is also overseeing our employees and day-to-day operations as well. And I myself am overseeing ethics as well as the Google X venture.
Okay. Going still within the realm of ethics, an area of recent interest is, to many, is the data gathered by your site and things like that. Do you feel that it's right to use and save user-generated content?
Yeah, Ellie, I think what's important to understand is that Google has been, and I believe will continue to be, at the forefront of technology. We are currently pushing the envelope, and with that, making many new discoveries as to what we can do with technology. And I think that's what many people don't realize, is that there is no rule book for where Google's going. So we have to take that upon our shoulders and really ultimately decide, until regulations come into place, what we can do with the data and what is right.
So do you feel that Google's doing its job to follow your model of "Don't be evil"?
I think we are, and I can understand how some people have a tough time with some of the things Google's done. But what you got to realize is that we are trying to always better our products. So, for instance, some people complain that maybe Google stores data, but for instance, one way that customers inputting their information into Google is beneficial is if you're using Google Maps, let's say, a really popular application that many people use. And Google Maps may know that when you're on long highway commutes, you may like to pull over at Culver's. So Google Maps logs this, and they might recommend Culver's to you, which is pretty cool feature of our software. And we believe that it is ethical to do something like this because we're just advancing our software that's currently in place.
So now, how do you feel that you avoid ethical conflicts?
Yeah, I think one good story to tell about ethical conflicts is our dispute we had with China back in 2003. China had blocked our access to our consumers in China, and our page was just down in all areas of China. And so what I did was immediately bought a half dozen books on China, Chinese business and government on Amazon, and read through those to study up on the culture and make sure that I was prepared and knowledgeable, and then immediately had to hire outside consultants to troubleshoot as well. So it's the foresight and the awareness of the consumers and the other companies that we're dealing with that is important to me in avoiding ethical conflicts.
Okay. Now let's kind of switch gears a little bit and move into a different area, I guess, of ethics. I don't believe, from what I've looked into, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe Google has ever been under fire for ethics in your workplace. So how would you say that you shape how do your values shape an employee's experience at Google?
Yeah, when I was first starting out with my master's and PhD at Stanford, an objective of mine was good pay, large office, and to do very little work. And on top of that, if that's not a stretch, I wanted to be able to travel. And although not necessarily practical, I believe that Google is a standing image of that dream. And I believe that not only for the top executives, but the people who work for Google as well, are able to achieve many of those items that I had once set forth as goals for myself.
So with all that fun at Google that you have, I mean, it's clearly a very exciting company, and many people are, you're never short on applications and such. But what do you really believe that this method of leadership is truly effective?
Yeah, I believe it's not only effective but sustainable. We recently, well, this was several years back, I guess I should say, started something known as the 80-20 rule. So 80% of your time is devoted to Google work. The other 20% can be anything that you desire, as long as it's not breaking any rules, as long as it's allowed. If it's allowed at Google, it's okay by us. And what we've seen is that this motivates people to work, and a lot of cool things have come out of it, like Gmail and predictive search.
So now that we're, sort of on the topic of employees, how do you keep your employees motivated at Google, and how do you, I would definitely say that Google's a huge success. How do you sustain that success within this, massive, ever-growing company?
Right, I mentioned reading before, just being aware and engaged with everyone, but to keep people motivated, what we found is that prior to Google becoming the Fortune top place to work, SAS previously had the role. And in Larry and I studying them, we found that people really generally want their work to be valued and appreciated. So we strive to display that at our work, to value our employees, and really when they have success, we let them know. And they're all bright people. We hire great people at Google, and they're aware of that. But definitely showing encouragement and sharing with the employees and the success at Google is how we motivate them.
It's wonderful. I know you kind of touched on Gmail being one of those outside projects with that 80-20 program that you offer at Google, but can you give me maybe a different example of a project that may not have directly benefited Google, because clearly Gmail did? Is there a project that maybe didn't directly benefit Google through that 80-20 program that you do offer?
Sure. Some employees might use that time to take their dog, who they bring into campus, on a walk. But we had one young engineer who was very interested in world peace. And what he had done was he had created a course with the help of a Stanford professor. And that's really a popular course that Googlers take. In his spare time, though, he also wrote a best-selling book, best-selling according to the New York Times and their publication, called Inside Yourself. So two great projects that this man created with his 20% of free time spent at Google.
Oh, that's wonderful.